Last month, something strange happened to me. I'm a 32-year-old software developer, living alone in a quiet apartment complex. After my breakup, I wanted peace to focus on my projects. I thought I had found it until everything changed. One night, I was winding down after a long day. I turned on my computer and started checking my email. A message from an unknown sender caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a spam or a prank, but then I read it. It mentioned details about my daily life, my coffee runs, and my evening walks. I felt uneasy, but I pushed it aside. Couldn't be anything serious, right? I continued my routine, trying to forget about it. But more emails came. They got more personal every time. They talked about my favorite spots, my habits, even how I wore my hair in a bun while I worked late. Each message rattled me. I began to feel like someone was watching. My heart raced when I checked my inbox. Who could it be? Was someone I knew playing a cruel joke? Then there were the footsteps. It started at night. I heard soft footsteps echoing outside my door. I peeked out, but no one was there. Anxiety crept in. I felt a chill in the air. Someone was lurking just out of sight. I tried to dismiss my fear as imagination, but the footsteps persisted. One evening, I decided to close my blinds. I didn't want to see if someone was out there. After I shut them, another email arrived. This time, it described the day I bought groceries and hummed my favorite song. Panic surged, and I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I wondered, who could I tell? Would anyone believe me? The emails continued, each more invasive than the last. I started noticing shadows outside my window. They lingered too long. I felt trapped. In my own home, I didn't know if I was paranoid or if someone was truly watching me. Then one night, something changed. After another email, I walked to the window. I wanted to see. That's when I saw him. He stood across the street, staring directly at me. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. He smiled. It was a slow, deliberate smile. Did he know I was watching? I thought about grabbing my phone, but I felt frozen. Did he mean me harm? I felt like I was drowning in uncertainty. He asked me, "Why are you so afraid?" I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to turn away, to hide, but my feet wouldn't move. I finally turned away from the window. My heart raced. What would I do next? I didn't know. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted, that my safety meant nothing to this stranger. The emails kept coming, and with them a sense of dread deepened in my gut. I realized I wasn't just scared, I was trapped in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to escape. I didn't sleep that night. Each creak of the building made me jump, my heart pounding in my chest. I kept replaying that smile in my head, the way it twisted my stomach into knots. I knew I needed to do something. Ignoring it wasn't an option anymore. The next morning, I decided to go to the local cafe. It had always been my safe haven. As I sipped my coffee, I tried to gather my thoughts. I scanned the cafe, half expecting to see him lurking somewhere. But all I saw were regular patrons, chatting or buried in laptops. I felt foolish for being paranoid about a man I didn't even know. After a few awkward sips, I pulled out my phone. I wanted to check my email again, but as the app loaded, I hesitated. Should I really read more messages from whoever was stalking me? I barely contained the urge to throw my phone across the table. Instead, I decided to take action. I could at least reach out to my friend Sam. He was skeptical, but always supportive. I texted him to meet me later and poured my heart out over the screen about everything that had happened. I needed someone to believe me and help me piece this together. When I got home, the weight of my own thoughts hung over me. As the evening settled in, I picked up my phone to check the time, but a notification caught my eye. Another email. My gut twisted as I opened it. This time, it was different. "I see you," it began. My palms went sweaty. It went on to describe my day in excruciating detail, how I had chatted with the barista, what I ordered, and even the way I brushed my hair behind my ear. I felt sick. I closed the app, my breaths coming out in short gasps. It was as if my whole life was being laid out for this monster to see. Suddenly, I remembered my blinds. I dashed to the window and looked out. There he was again, standing across the street. This time, I felt a surge of anger. It was one thing to write emails about me. It was another to stand there and stare like I was a specimen on display. He raised a hand and slowly waved. My body went cold. "What do you want?" I yelled, but my voice felt weak, as if it echoed down a dark tunnel. He just continued to smile, that unnerving grin plastered on his face. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just dealing with fear. I was being toyed with. The shadows outside weren't just a figment of my imagination. They were a reality I needed to confront. As he turned to walk away, I caught a glimpse of something shiny in his hand. Could it be a weapon? That thought made my heart race again. I couldn't just stand there and wait for something to happen. I hurried to my phone and called Sam, my hands trembling. I told him everything. "I need you to come over," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. There was a moment of silence on the other end. "I'll be there soon," he finally replied. But a warm buzz of relief mixed with dread settled in my chest. Just then, a knock came at the door. My pulse quickened. Who was it? Was it Sam, or was it him? I approached cautiously, my mind racing. I glanced through the peephole, my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't Sam. I opened the door a crack. I wished I could take back my decision. I edged the door open just enough to catch a glimpse of him. My heart dropped as the familiar face of my landlord stared back at me. He wasn't the threat I had been expecting, but the sudden wave of adrenaline still had me on edge. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Hey, sorry to bother you. I just wanted to check on the heating," he said, glancing past me into the dimly lit apartment. "It's been acting up with this cold snap." I hesitated, half expecting him to make a comment about my nervousness. Instead, he stepped inside, his presence filling the space. I forced myself to breathe, trying to appear nonchalant. "Yeah, it should be fine," I replied, my eyes darting to the window where I last saw him standing outside. The landlord frowned. "You sure? I can take a look." I nodded, unsure of how to redirect this unexpected visit without letting on that I was on high alert. I just didn't feel like it was working correctly. My voice came out too quiet as I glanced at the clock. I wanted Sam to arrive soon. "All right, I'll check the heater in the back," he said, retreating down the hallway. I followed behind, trying to keep my composure. While he inspected the heater, my mind raced back to the man outside. Why was he watching me? I needed answers. As my landlord knelt by the appliance, I noticed something unusual. The door to my apartment, barely ajar, put me on edge. With a quick glance, I reached for my phone. I wanted to shoot Sam a text, but I was interrupted by a noise. The floor creaked by the window. I turned sharply to see the shadow of a figure passing outside. A shiver crawled up my spine. My instincts screamed at me to check again. Let me see if the window's stuck," I said, edging away from the landlord. With each cautious step, I approached the window, squinting outside. The street was bare, the shadows playing tricks on me. I felt the space around me constrict. I had to know. "There's nothing wrong," I called back over my shoulder. My voice sounded too forced, but I needed to get this visit over with. After a few more moments, he stood, wiping his hands on his jeans. "All right, if you have any problems, let me know. And just so you know, I've seen the guy lurking around here. It's creepy." I froze, my pulse racing anew. "You have? You mean the one?" "Yeah, I don't know what his deal is. He's been standing across the street for days," he said, eyeing me. The look in his eyes held both concern and curiosity. "You should really think about calling the police." I nodded, feeling a mix of dread and relief. I wasn't imagining things after all. But before I could respond, a sudden crash echoed outside my door. My heart raced as I rushed back to the peephole. That's when I saw it. A dark figure stood in my hallway, cutting through the shadows like a knife. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a blur anymore. I could see the details. A hood pulled low over a face I couldn't make out. I felt the blood drain from my face. "What is it?" My landlord's voice pierced the tension. He stepped closer to me, peering over my shoulder. "What do you see?" I barely managed to breathe. "There's someone." Before I could finish, the figure lunged forward, shoving my apartment door wide open. The force knocked my landlord back, and I stumbled a few steps in shock. My instincts kicked in. I grabbed my phone, ready to call for help, but the intruder moved too fast. "Stay back!" I yelled, holding my phone up like it was some kind of shield. I didn't know what I expected to do with it, but my heart raced. "Get out of the way!" the figure shouted in a voice laced with urgency. It was a man's voice, but the pitch was off, like he was on the edge of panic. My landlord scrambled to his feet, a look of surprise shadowing his face. "Who are you?" he demanded, stepping protectively in front of me. I wanted to do something, anything, but fear gripped me like a vice. The figure hesitated, then turned slightly, revealing a thin face and wild eyes. "I'm here to warn you. You have to leave." I blinked in confusion. "What? Leave? Why?" "The man watching you, he's not just some creeper. He's dangerous." The urgency in his voice sent shivers down my spine. "You don't understand. He knows you." The world around me tilted. I looked to my landlord, hoping for a shred of reason in this madness, but he was just as bewildered as I was. "What do you mean, knows her?" he asked, glancing between us. "He's been following you for weeks. You need to get out." The figure took a step forward and my heart raced. "Get away from her!" my landlord shouted, stepping back and raising a hand as if to push him away. But the figure was undeterred. "I don't have time for this," he snapped. "He's coming. You have to trust me." Then everything went dark. My phone slipped from my fingers as a loud bang echoed behind me. I spun around, trying to assess what had happened, but the weight of dread pressed down on me. I couldn't see anything, just shadows moving through the darkness. My heart raced louder than ever. "Is everyone okay?" I yelled, but my voice was swallowed by the silence that followed. And then, just like that, the front door swung shut with a loud thud, sealing my fate and plunging me into uncertainty. My breath hitched as I fumbled in the dark, trying to find my phone. I needed to figure this out, and fast. But what did I really know? And who could I trust now? I fumbled around in the darkness, my fingers finally brushing against my phone. I quickly hit the power button, and its screen lit up, throwing a faint glow over my cramped living room. Panic washed over me as I scanned for the intruder, or any sign of my landlord, but I was alone. My heart thudded loudly in my chest, and I could feel the cold sweat on my forehead. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is anyone there?" No response. Just silence, and my mind racing with thoughts of what had just happened. I needed to know more about the man who had burst into my apartment. Why would he warn me? Who was watching me? I clutched my phone tightly, already searching through my emails, when a memory sparked. The odd email I had received last month. The subject line had been innocuous enough. "Reminder, you're being watched." At the time, I thought it was a scam or some phishing attempt, but now, with the figure's warning still echoing in my mind, it felt ominously relevant. I clicked on the email, and the words swirled in front of me, almost mocking me with their relevance. As I read, my pulse quickened. It detailed patterns of my daily life, when I left for work, when I came home, and even suggestions for places I often visited. There was no sender name, just a close of "Stay cautious." I frowned, the pieces slowly falling into place. Someone had been studying me. Someone had been watching me, just like the man had said. My gut twisted at the implication. I jolted when I heard a noise behind me, a soft creak from the hallway. My heart pounded. Could it be him? I quickly swiped through the email, searching for more details. Surely there had to be something that connected it all. But the vague nature of the email did nothing to ease my fear. Get yourself together, I whispered to myself. I needed to figure out what I was up against. The shadows lingered just out of sight, lurking in the corners, and the silence felt like a suffocating blanket. Steeling my nerve, I stood up and moved toward the hallway. The prospect of confronting whatever danger lay ahead felt daunting, but I couldn't stay in my apartment, filled with questions and doubt. I needed answers. As I stepped carefully into the hallway, my phone illuminated the space like a flashlight. But then, just at that moment, I saw it. On the floor near the front door was something small and shiny. I bent down to get a closer look. It was a key, not one from my apartment. Then something caught my eye by the doorframe, a slipped piece of paper that had been stuck between the crack. I reached down to pick it up, peering into the gloom of the hallway beyond. That's when I saw it. A pair of dark eyes staring back at me from the depths of the shadows. I froze, my heart racing. The eyes were unnervingly still, unblinking, like they were studying me, just as I had been studying the email. I squinted, trying to make out more of the figure hidden in the darkness, but my phone's light barely cut through the thick gloom. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, but the words barely left my mouth before a deep, guttural voice responded. "You shouldn't be here." A chill ran down my spine. I took a step back, gripping my phone tighter, not sure if it offered any real protection. "What do you want?" The figure shifted slightly, and I could now see part of his face. A scruffy beard, deep-set eyes, and the hint of a smirk that sent another wave of fear coursing through me. "It's not what I want, but what they want." "Who are they?" I stammered, struggling to keep my voice steady. I was desperate for clarity, for an explanation that would simplify this terrifying moment. "I could explain, but you need to trust me," he replied, moving into the faint light. Even in my panic, I recognized the man. He was the same stranger from the alley. I took another step back. "Why should I trust you?" I shot back, remembering how he had invaded my space just hours ago. There was no way I could turn my back on him now. "I know you've received a warning." His eyes flickered to the piece of paper still clutched in my hand. "And I know they won't stop until they have what they want." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. My mind scrambled. Was he referring to the email? My instincts screamed at me to run, to slam the door and lock it, but curiosity kept my feet glued to the ground. "I'm already in danger, aren't I?" I asked, feeling bile rise in my throat. The weight of the key in my hand reminded me of my vulnerability. The man took a step forward, closer to the light, and I caught a glimpse of something sharp in his pocket. "Yes, you need to come with me if you want to stay safe. This isn't what it seems." "Stay safe?" I echoed, feeling anger bubble up. "How do I know this isn't just another trap? Why were you watching me?" He sighed, a flash of frustration crossing his face. "Because you're being followed. I can help you, but you have to decide quickly. They're closer than you think." Just then, my phone buzzed in my hand. The screen lit up with a notification, but I couldn't take my eyes off the man standing in front of me. "They're here," he said, his voice low and urgent. The gravity of his words hit me like a punch. I turned my attention back to the hallway, suddenly aware of the unsettling silence. I could feel the shift in the air, that suffocating tension creeping back in. Then I heard it, the faint sound of footsteps approaching. I strained to hear through the overwhelming silence. The footsteps were irregular, almost hesitant, but they were getting closer. My pulse quickened, and I instinctively took another step back, blending into the shadows of the hallway. "Please, you have to listen," the man urged, his eyes darting toward the oncoming threat. "We don't have time. You need to trust me." Trust him? I felt like I was being pulled in two directions. The fear of the unknown was battling against the desperation for answers. I turned my gaze back to the darkened corridor, barely daring to breathe. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "What do they want with me?" "They're looking for something you have," he said, frustration dripping from his words. "Whatever you found out, it's made you a target." I remembered the email, the cryptic warnings. "But I haven't done anything," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't even know what they want." "You know more than you think," he replied, "and if we don't get out of here now, you'll wish you hadn't found that email at all." I took another deep breath to steady myself. "And where will we go? How do I know you won't just hand me over?" He was about to answer when the footsteps abruptly stopped. A tense silence fell over us. It felt like the calm before a storm. My mind raced. I was on the precipice of something I had no control over, and I needed to act. "Please, now," he urged again, stepping closer to me. "We can't waste another second." Then everything happened at once. An ominous figure appeared at the end of the hallway, silhouetted by the light spilling from the living room. My stomach dropped. I recognized the outline. It was a man in a dark coat, just like the one I had seen days ago. In a panic, I turned back to the stranger standing beside me, but he was already moving, grabbing my wrist and pulling me toward the back door. I stumbled as he dragged me along, my heart racing wildly. It was instinctive to resist. I didn't know this man. "I said trust me," he hissed, urgency dripping from his voice as he pushed me out the door and into the night. The cool air hit me like a wall, and I gasped. The world outside was dark and unfamiliar. I looked back just in time to see the figure in the doorway take a step forward, but he didn't follow. Instead, he shouted something, words I couldn't make out. Without thinking, I ran. The ground felt uneven beneath my feet as I darted down the alley, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Where are we going?" I shouted over my shoulder, the darkness swallowing me whole. "Somewhere safe," he replied, glancing back as we rounded a corner. But the response cut off when I heard another noise, a sharp sound echoing in the distance. I froze again, panic flooding my senses. I turned slowly, scanning the area. That's when I saw it. A shadow darting from one side of the street to the other. A new threat. Someone was following us. "Move!" he shouted, and with that command, I buried my fear and took off again. I sprinted through the night, my lungs burning with each breath. The echo of footsteps behind us pushed me faster. I didn't dare look back, fearing what I might see. "Who are they?" I gasped, adrenaline coursing through me as I glanced sideways at my companion. "I'll explain later. Just keep running," he urged, his voice firm but laced with urgency. I didn't realize how far we'd gone until the alley opened up into a small courtyard. A flickering streetlight cast shallow pools of light across the ground. "Where do we go now?" I panted, trying to catch my breath. The looming darkness felt like it was about to consume us. "Over there." He pointed to a rickety wooden door set into a brick wall. It looked abandoned. Surely there was nothing inside but dust and shadows. But the frantic beats of my heart made the choice for me. I hurried toward the door, my instincts kicking in. We reached the entrance just as I heard footsteps growing closer behind us. "Hurry!" I cried, pushing the door open. The hinges creaked loudly in protest as we stumbled inside. I held my breath, listening. The footsteps stopped just outside. My eyes adjusted to the dim light inside. The room was small, cluttered with old crates and forgotten furniture. A single window took up one wall, and I quickly pulled the curtains shut, sealing us inside the tiny sanctuary. "What now?" I whispered, pressing my back against the wall. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, overshadowing the silence around us. "Just stay quiet," he replied. He moved to the window, peeking through a gap in the faded fabric. "They might pass us by." I could barely comprehend what was happening. I felt trapped in a nightmare. Why are they after me? What have I done? It's what you found, he said, turning back to me, anxiety etched on his face. That email, it isn't just random. It's connected to something much bigger. And now they're involved. My mind raced back to the strange message, the vague threats embedded in the words. I thought it was just a prank or a scam. I faltered, dread pooling in my stomach. They didn't want you to take it seriously, but you did. Now they don't want you alive. He clenched his jaw, a mix of anger and fear. I felt a chill run down my spine. What do you mean? Before he could respond, a sound echoed through the stillness, a low voice coming from just outside the door. They can't hide forever, a man said, the ominous tone chilling me to the bone. We know you're in there. You can't escape us. I held my breath, panic clawing at my throat. My gaze darted around the room, searching for a way out. My mind was racing, flinging questions at me faster than I could process. Stay low, the stranger hissed. If they come in, we have to surprise them. Panic turned to determination. But just as I was ready to dig my heels in and face whatever came next, the door rattled violently. My heart jumped. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, heart pounding, breath coming in quick bursts. The darkness pressed in around me, thick and suffocating. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. All I knew was that I had been running for my life only moments before. Then I remembered the door, the strange man, and the urgency in his voice. Panic surged, and I scrambled to pull myself upright. What happened? I muttered, my voice hoarse as it echoed off the walls. Shh, he said, a finger pressed to his lips. He was there, crouching beside me, his face barely visible in the faint light that filtered through a crack in the door. You passed out. I'm sorry. It got too tense. I brushed my fingers through my hair, disoriented. What are we going to do? He looked toward the door, worry etched on his features. We need to get out of here. I don't think they're leaving. Just then, a loud bang rattled the door, making me jump. I held my breath, eyes wide. What was that? They're trying to get in, he said, urgency creeping into his voice. We have to move. I glanced around the room, my pulse racing. The window. It was small, but might be our only chance. Can we escape through there? I pointed, hope flaring for a moment. He hesitated, then nodded. It's worth a shot. Help me see if we can get it open. We crept toward the window, sticking to the shadows. The sound of someone kicking the door again made me flinch. I could almost hear the metal protesting, like it was begging to stay intact. The stranger yanked at the window. It groaned loudly, refusing to budge. Come on, he muttered, pushing harder. Footsteps echoed from behind us, marching through the courtyard. The men were searching everywhere. I pressed myself against the wall, wishing I could melt into it. Suddenly, I felt a rush of air. The window swung open, creaking ominously. Got it, he exclaimed. He climbed up first, his body slipping through the gap. Help me, quick! I hurried after him, squeezing through just as the door clattered open behind us. The faces of the men came into view, illuminated by the flickering streetlight. There was no time to hesitate. I tumbled out into the cool night air, landing hard on the ground. Go, go, he urged, looking back toward the doorway where the men were stepping inside. We ran, hearts racing, feeling the weight of every second. I could hear voices shouting, the sound growing fainter as we put distance between us and the horror that threatened to engulf us. What do we do now? I asked as we turned a corner, breath hitching in my throat. Find somewhere safe. But first, you need to tell me everything, he replied, urgency mixing with a hint of determination. I need to know what was in that email. I nodded, reality settling over me like a shroud. What had I stumbled into? There were answers to be found, but I wasn't sure if they would lead to safety or danger. We pressed on, searching for an answer, reluctantly, uncertainly. That's when I saw it. a figure standing under a flickering streetlight, pointing directly at us. My stomach dropped. This was far from over. I stumbled to a halt, eyes locked on the figure. My gut tensed, a mixture of fear and recognition. He stood there, the stranger, the one who had been watching me for weeks, the one whose emails had invaded my life like a rude guest refusing to leave. It felt like destiny, or perhaps a chase that had just made a new turn. "Stop!" he shouted, taking a step closer. I wanted to run again, to disappear into the night, but something held me there, a twisted curiosity battling my instincts. The stranger beside me stiffened, instinctively bringing his hands up as if readying himself without revealing his next move. "What do you want?" I shouted back, the adrenaline pumping through my veins. "They're coming for you," he barked. "You have to listen." The urgency in his tone struck a chord deep within me. I stole a glance at my companion, who looked equally wary, yet somehow unyielding. "Just trust me," the newcomer insisted as shadows began to dart behind him. The threat I had only just escaped seemed to be approaching again. "Listen, I don't know who you are." I was almost pleading at this point. "You've been tracking me, invading my life. Why should I trust anything you say?" "They want the key," he replied, his voice steady yet desperate. "The key you have in your hand." I looked down instinctively. The small, shiny key dangled from my fingers like a live wire. "This," I breathed, confusion swirling in my mind as the pieces of everyone else's urgency began to align. "Yes, the key unlocks something they need." He waved his arms meaningfully as he twisted the air between us with his words. "Please, we can talk." But the moment of explanation hung in the air, dissipating like smoke as a cacophony of footsteps erupted from the shadows behind him. "We don't have time," my companion yelled. "You need to decide, now." "Go with him," shouted the stranger, panic evident in his eyes, the fear of the lurking shadows bringing forth just enough courage for clarity. "We can't let them get you." The shadows were moving fast, their intent gathering weight in the air around us. My heart pounded in response to their approach. But could I step away from the reality I had spent nights wrapping my mind around? I was about to throw myself into yet another unknown. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I want to find out what's behind all this. What the hell is going on? It's beyond you. It's not safe anymore." The urgency in my companion's voice was palpable as he glanced hastily around, scanning for a means of escape. I could feel the weight of decision slipping through my fingers. Was I brave enough to confront it all, or wise enough to run? I hesitated, the strangeness of my own existence pressing down on me. How I had unwrapped a mystery only to stare into the dark abyss beyond it. "Listen to me," the stranger said again, stepping forward, 2 steps away from becoming the target he was warning me about. "You can't hold on to that key forever. They will come for you if you stay." Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a shadow lunged toward me. My reflexes kicked in, adrenaline propelling me into action. I ducked to the side as the figures sprang into view, and I used my momentum to sprint for the nearest alley, pushing through the overwhelming sense of dread. "They'll follow," the newcomer shouted. "You have to trust me." I glanced back, weighing my choices against the backdrop of uncertainty. My life had turned into a frenzied chase where I felt the weight of every unknown inching closer, every haunting shadow holding pieces of this puzzle. Then voices shouted behind me, and clarity hit. I was caught in the middle of something incredibly sinister, something that didn't care about my doubts or my safety. Without thinking, I dove into the darkness of the alley that my instincts commanded. "Choose already," my companion called after me, urgency coloring his voice, even as we both ran toward a street I didn't recognize. And for a moment, everything began to blur, a rush of sound and shadow, until, suddenly, there was silence. In a moment of stillness, I paused to catch my breath, my heart hammering in my chest. "Where did they go?" I asked, the questions cascading down like a torrent. My thoughts weren't complete, yet the flickering streetlights brought the outlines of our surroundings into focus, now feeling more alive than ever. All the way through the maze. The stranger was beside me, his presence both a comfort and a complication. Get back to where it started. Start of what? I asked incredulously, still undecided about whether it was worth pursuing or fleeing. But before he could elaborate, I caught a glimpse of movement at the corner of my eye, a chill running down my spine. Everything felt dangerously close to coming undone. I don't know if I can go back to that world, I murmured, feeling the finality of my whisper hanging heavy in the air. Go back now? Or let them capture you? He shot back, the tension rising again as we stood there, momentarily paralyzed by the weight of uncertainty. In the distance, more shadows drew near, and my instincts flared once more. Look! I steeled myself, running. Whatever's coming is worse than what I might leave behind. I felt a crackle of raw determination surge through me, and for the first time since this ordeal began, I had to take a leap of faith. I couldn't keep running, not anymore. With uncertainty in my heart and the key clutched tightly in my fist, I faced the darkness ahead. Whatever waited there was a step into my past I couldn't control, and the path might be shrouded in ambiguity, but at least I would be moving forward. And who knows? Maybe those questions were what would finally bring light to the shadows, creeping ever closer on our heels.